So we were just beginning, and I just thought we'll set the context of this morning by, getting down to the fundamentals of why this discussion is on the table. And one of the most important things for women in India is that they need to get into the workforce. And the participation of women in the Indian workforce, if India has to be a $5 trillion economy, cannot be complete without safety. And that safety is a very critical barometer of many things that women have to perhaps ask themselves or hold themselves back with. Aspiration, ambition, the ability to get to office, the ability to get around to pick up their kids, the ability to go out there and feel that, okay, when I get onto a cab, I am in a safe space and I can get on with the work I want to do. And I think most of us as women, and all of the ones on my discussion table here as well, are constantly grappling with that one thought. How do we unleash the idea of safety for women? If I go back go by some of the statistics that have been talked about here in this room, we could have 500,000 women get into the workforce practically by 2028 if we start solving for something as fundamental as safety in transportation. Kanta, I want to start this discussion with you and ask you to put in context for us women safety today in your assessment and where we are and where we want to be.
It's absolutely critical that we start talking about safety as a major part of our work. Whether it is private sector, it's government, it's everyone. Women's safety should not be women's concern. It should be everybody's concern. Because it impacts our economy, it impacts our GDP, it impacts women's mental and physical health. The cost of violence on the health sector is immense. So if we start counting everything, the cost of violence on women is phenomenal, and we are not talking about it. Yeah. A company like Uber, and Shaili, I'll just stop at this, a company like Uber will have immense business gains if you start investing in women's safety, because you're also contributing to the overall ecosystem through which women will go to work, women will have better social life, women will not have to think every time they have to step out of the house. So it's very important that we normalize these conversations in the parliament, everywhere that we are sitting, saying it's not just women. And the onus of safety should not lie on women. It should lie on everyone, particularly the ones who are causing violence.
Why is mobility a very central part of women unleashing themselves over the opportunities that are available here?
So first of all, mobility is extremely important. Secondly, mobility for women is a challenge, and particularly in rural areas. Why? Because, one is that people don't prioritize education for women. For women, it's that what help will it be if my daughter gets educated? So that is less prioritized. Secondly, it's a question of safety, because every village doesn't have a school, so they have to move from one village to the other, and that is a safety issue for women in the rural areas. Yeah. Also, the priority is that girls look after their siblings, girls look after the household chores, and that's why this is not prioritized. So mobility is very important. Government could come out with more provision of bicycles. We recently have been progressing in the field of electric bikes. So if electric bikes are provided to girls to travel to other distances, I think this could be one issue that can be resolved. Also, the number of buses that we have. Nitin Gadkari ji, in his some reply in the House, has said that buses that are available today are one bus for 1 lakh people. Yeah. So that's very little, and that's why obviously women are the ones who suffer. Then in public transport, they have the problem of eve teasing, they have the problem of being touched unnecessarily.
And that's perhaps one of the reasons, Dr. Khan, there is so much interest of women to take up that mobility, especially now because there are, cab hailing and, rides available. I wonder what your thoughts are on how many of these companies today could make the idea of women contributing to the economy a very central objective, and what they should look at as they go towards policy and the conversations with people like yourself in order to make the system more robust?
See, for the system to become more robust, of course, we have to prioritize, the government has to prioritize gender budgeting. They have to collect data. It should be data-driven. How women are facing, what problems they are facing, these should be identified. And then you have to have physical infrastructure properly. You have to have social infrastructure. You need to have all kinds of policies in place. And that's why it has to be a central focus of the government that everything should have a gendered view. Because unless the women are empowered, the country's women are empowered in every way, we cannot really see them move forward, because they will have to compromise their futures, the country's futures, due to fear of harassment, due to fear of being always compromising with their safety. And that's why the government has to take a wholesome view and come out with better policies in this regard.
Yeah. And I think somewhere central to this is listening to women. And I think that's really the crux of many of the surveys that we've been hearing about in this room, that more than two-thirds of women say they feel safer in a cab versus being in public transport. So, Ms. Deo, I want your perspective on this, because as we think of women, we all have been through this transition of technology, transport, and all of it. Where do you think these stakeholders can be brought together?
I would just like to add to what Fauzia ji, my esteemed colleague, has said. And, we have a 1 billion population, and 50% of that are women. And as Shaili started off by saying that women are going to be a very strong workforce, I feel they already are. But I think 2025 is going to see us in stronger numbers. And it is our duty, nobody is doing anybody a favor, when we say that women have to be kept safe. And as regards preferring Uber or a taxi to a bus, now, we've heard horrific stories, the Nirbhaya case and various others, where the crime was committed in a bus. And some way in the psyche of women, that has had a traumatic impact. And as far as creating a safe environment for women goes, yes, it has to be a comprehensive policy decision, not only by the center, but various state governments, and also various stakeholders. We have to up our game vis-a-vis, camera, CCTV coverage on streets, cabs, so that we become like the West. Having said that, despite all the CCTV cameras in the world in the West, the crime rate hasn't gone down. Yeah. Yeah. So that is, it's a paradox. And I feel that, yes, women prefer cabs because they feel it's better to fight off one man than the entire, Russian army in the bus. So, they do prefer that because it's a more safe environment. They have enough time to call up their people. The moment they catch the cab, they can inform their loved ones that, look, this is my cab number. We have to perform our part. It is also a psychological warfare. You see, when the man who's driving the cab knows that she's an enlightened individual, he'd think 10 times.
Sulata ji, I want to ask you, we've been talking about we're not just 50% of the population, we deserve to be 50% of the voice. And that voice really should be the voice in parliament at this stage, if you ask me, because we need to start making women's safety not just a nara, but something that has real legs, it's got funding backing it, and we're out there talking about some serious fundamentals on who will be accountable. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much. जितने भी हम लोग के पास जितने भी गाड़ियाँ हो जो भी हो आज उबर इतने मतलब चारों दिशा में इतने अच्छे से फैल रहा है, इतना अच्छा ट्रांसपोर्ट दे रहा है, शायद ही अगर उबर ना होता तो हम लोग अपने काम पर जल्दी जाके पहुंच भी नहीं पाते, और रात को भी हो, एयरपोर्ट भी हो, कहीं से कहीं को भी हो, उबर मिल जाता है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। जब उबर नहीं था तब शायद हम लोग जब जाना आना करते थे, हम लोगों को बहुत मुश्किल का सामना करना पड़ता था, कहीं से बुक करो, टैक्सी बुक करो, ये बुक करो। मैं खुद उबर में जाती हूँ, मैं एमपी हूँ ऐसा नहीं है, मेरे पास गाड़ी भी है, मैं खुद ड्राइव भी करती हूँ, मगर मैं खुद उबर में जाती हूँ, मेरे फ़ोन पे उबर का एप्लीकेशन भी लोड है। तो ये क्या है ना, कभी कभी हमको ऐसा करना चाहिए। हमने देखा है कि आज जितने भी, मैं और एक बात देखता हूँ, आज जितने भी इतने सारे जो हम लोग के पास जो पॉल्यूशंस हो रहे हैं, ये रहे, जितने घर में जितने लोग होते हैं उतने ही गाड़ियाँ होती है। माँ की एक होती है, बाप की एक होती है, बेटी की होती है, बेटे की होते हैं। अगर हम सब अपने अपने गाड़ी लेके चलेंगे ना, तो ये जो दुनिया ही ये कभी रहने लायक नहीं होगा। कभी कभी हम लोगों को पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट और ऐसे जैसे गाड़ी जैसे उबर होते हुए शेयरिंग उबर भी होते हैं, उसको यूज़ कर लेना चाहिए। और ऐसे होने से कम हम अपने 4 गाड़ियाँ, आज देखिए दिल्ली में बहुत सारे एमपीओं के पास गाड़ी भी है, मगर वो गाड़ी अपना निकाल नहीं पा रहे क्योंकि ऐसे लगा हुआ है, ऐसे नियम लगा हुआ है। इसके चलते हम लोगों को पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट के साथ साथ उबर भी, मैं तो देखा शेयर उबर भी है, शेयर ये की भी है, तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, अगर हम लोग शेयर करके भी जा सकते हैं। जितने कम गाड़ी का यूज़ हो, जितने कम व्हीकल्स हम लोग, पॉल्यूशन उतना कम हो।
You know, driver sensitization, Suraj was talking about it, is a very core issue that, companies are focused on. आप उस एलिमेंट पे what are you hoping they'll be able to put together to solve?
क्योंकि एक घटना अगर एक लड़की के साथ होती है, उससे 50 लड़कियों की जिंदगियों में फर्क पड़ता है,
कई ज़्यादा एक्चुअली।
बहुत मतलब मैं तो वैसे कह रही हूँ, छोटा आसपास के एरिया में लड़कियाँ स्कूल जाना बंद कर देती हैं, जबकि जो लड़के हैं वो जाते रहते हैं। कॉलेज में से ड्रॉप आउट हो जाती हैं लड़कियाँ, उनकी शादी के लिए हो जाता है बातचीत, क्योंकि उनकी पढ़ाई रुक जाती है, और उसकी वजह से 10 फैमिलीज़ और कहती हैं नहीं, उनकी लड़की के साथ ऐसा हुआ, हम आपको नहीं पढ़ने देंगे आगे। सो इसका बहुत भारी इम्पैक्ट है देश के ऊपर, देश की महिलाओं की साइकी के ऊपर। हम 24 घंटे अलर्ट अवस्था में रहते हैं। आप सोचिए, अगर आप सड़क पे हैं, अलर्ट हैं, आई ऑलवेज वॉक ऑन द रॉन्ग साइड, ताकि दिखे सामने से कौन आ रहा है। जस्ट इमेजिन टू मूव आउट ऑफ द हाउस, हाउ मच प्रिपेयर्डनेस वी हैव टू कीप आवरसेल्व्स सेफ। तो उसको जो है ड्राइवर्स का, जैसे आप कहते हैं ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस एक चेकलिस्ट होगी आपके पास, बिफोर यू डिप्लॉय देम, ट्रेन देम. And that will go a long way in sensitizing the drivers, also saying this is zero tolerance for sexual harassment or any kind of harassment to the passengers, including men. ऐसा जरूरी भी नहीं है कि सारी harassment women पे होती है.
Shaili, I would just like to put in a word that driver sensitization may be the immediate relief, but there has to be a paradigm shift. I'm a mother of a daughter. I have 2 granddaughters and a grandson, very young though.
Yeah.
But the problem starts from the cradle. In our country, men are so entitled from the time they take their first breath. You know, this Chand Puttar syndrome, we really have to do away with it.
Yeah.
Because they feel so entitled. And you know, most of these sexual crimes, it's not the sexual intent. Sometimes it's a hate crime.
Yeah.
And gender sensitization has to start from the cradle, where men know that women are to be respected. And this overdose of testosterone is just not going to work.
Mitali, I want you to spend some time on, we talk about mobility, public infrastructure. Tell us about how today public infrastructure perhaps is absent in its approach to think about women and mobility, even though efforts by cab companies and perhaps other transport formats is now coming closer to top notch.
When we look at the design of cities, public spaces, bus stops, railway stations, airports, कहीं का भी हम अगर infrastructure, built infrastructure जिसे हम बोलते हैं, when we look at that, we have to make sure that there are certain elements of it which are gender sensitive. And one of the major elements which I want to highlight today is around last mile connectivity and pickup points. अब क्या है, आपने मेट्रो लिया, लेट्स एज्यूम वी आर ऑल इन दिल्ली, ठीक है, हम सब मेट्रो में जा रहे हैं. मेट्रो इज़ वेरी सेफ. सारे हम जो सर्वेस करते हैं, women always say we love Delhi Metro because Delhi Metro में हमें safe लगता है in the women's compartment as well as in others because you have presence of women marshals in across compartments. But the minute you come to the station, it is pandemonium, it is chaos because you don't know where to pick up your last mile transport. क्योंकि आपको या तो ऑटो लेना है. देर आर ऑटोज दैट यू आर गेटिंग ऑन एन ऐप ऑल्सो. उबर ऑटो इज ऑल्सो देयर. इफ यू आर कॉलिंग योर उबर, वेयर डू यू पिक इट अप फ्रॉम? देर हैज टू बी अ पिकअप पॉइंट. We were advising the National Capital Region Transport Corporation. It's going to start a fast train between Noida to Gurgaon almost. I mean, eventually. उनके डिज़ाइन पे हम उनको we were advising. हमने बोला आप अपने स्टेशन के अंदर पिकअप पॉइंट बना दीजिए. एंड दे आर नाउ डूइंग इट. क्योंकि हम उनको बोल रहे हैं तो वो कर रहे हैं. बट देर आर सो मैनी न्यू मेट्रोज विच आर कमिंग अप अक्रॉस द कंट्री. और वहाँ पे भी दिस इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ ऊबर एज अ लास्ट माइल सर्विस प्रोवाइडर इज समथिंग यू कैन थिंक अबाउट विद इन द स्टेशन.
As Kanta was telling earlier, people will hide and give up opportunities thinking that, oh, you know, I can't make this happen. I want you to spend some time talking about the flip side of it. Today, we do need to do a lot on safety. But also, safer mobility is perhaps the cornerstone of how women can achieve, participate, and create and be part of opportunity.
Well, transportation is the lifeline. I mean, if you can't always work from the house, so the moment you leave the house, you're mobile. And, you know, I feel that rather than wanting the government to do everything, now these cab companies should have a mapping system, especially when a lady is, you know, in that cab. Any way you see the driver deviating from the path. Now the destination also, if you really want to do technology, then I think we've all gone through a lot of sci-fi movies. We know what is possible. Everything is possible, but it requires funds. And everybody is trying to see how can I save that last buck. So if you want to invest in technology, this is what you have to do. Create a mapping system where any cab carrying a lady is deviating from that prescribed path. Now, I live in Lodi Estate. Suppose, hypothetically, I catch a cab from the airport. So there are just that many permutations and combinations you can take to get to my house. If you find that that person has gone off, there should be some flagging system. Because it's not always that, you know, things, we always sympathize in retrospect. But let us take action before the crime is perpetrated.
Sulata ji, you know, I always say that somebody who's seen this both state maybe, center maybe, and आपकी जो एक तरह से, you know, I can see there's so much female power right now in the parliament that I feel कि this is really the time that we can see a massive shift in at least that conversation converting into action. आपके point of view से किस तरह states, सेंटर एंड कंपनीज एक साथ काम कर सकते हैं?
ये प्रोग्राम ना यहाँ बस ताज ये में नहीं होना चाहिए. ये प्रोग्राम जहाँ जहाँ जो स्टेट में आप सर्विस दे रहे हैं उबर, तो कम से कम वहाँ के जो जाके वहीं स्टेट में आपके जो एजेंट्स रहते होंगे उनके साथ में मिलके एक छोटा छोटा प्रोग्राम बनाइए कि सबको पता चले कि आप इतने सर्विस दे रहे हैं. तो ये होने से ना ये बहुत अच्छे से कहाँ आप उनसे फीडबैक लेंगे. यू हैव टू टेक दैट फीडबैक बिकॉज किसको क्या प्रॉब्लम, मुझे क्या प्रॉब्लम है, इनको क्या, सबका प्रॉब्लम एक जैसा नहीं होता, सबका अलग अलग प्रॉब्लम को. तो इसमें क्या होता है ना, ज़्यादातर आपको मिल जाएगा कि ये प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है और आप उसमें देखिएगा कॉमन प्रॉब्लम क्या है. ज़्यादातर कॉमन प्रॉब्लम का यू हैव टू सॉर्ट आउट दैट प्रॉब्लम.
So they are already doing that with technology.
Yes.
But you know what I love the idea about a driver trust dialogue. And I think it might not be a bad idea at all what she's saying, like get into every state,
Yeah.
talk to people,
तो इसको आपको ना जो पब्लिक और पुलिस जैसे रहता है, पब्लिक पुलिस और ऊबर हो जो आप लोग ये करते, उसको एक जैसे छोटा छोटा मीटिंग हो, कोई सेमिनार हो जहाँ फीडबैक आए और आप उस हिसाब से काम करिएगा, तो ये और भी स्मूथ हो जाएगा और भी अच्छा सर्विस सबको मिलने लगेगा. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर इन्वाइटिंग मी एंड for a nice interaction.
And thank you both for being with us here on the discussion.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists for your time and your deliberate thoughts. Our wonderful marketing team has actually launched a campaign yesterday to do exactly what we were talking about, start a conversation about women's safety where the burden is not on women to talk about safety. We'll just play that video here.
मेरी मम्मी हमेशा कहती है, यू गो गर्ल, पर 7 बजे के पहले वापस भी आ जाना. कभी कभी तो कुछ गलियों में इतना अंधेरा होता है, मुझे मोलेस्टर भी नहीं दिखते. सडनली बस एक आवाज आती है, अरे इधर आ जाओ. किधर आऊं भाई, तू है कहाँ?
Whenever I'm out, I count my steps, and when I reach home, I count my blessing.
छेड़ने के लिए लोग कुछ भी कह देते हैं कि ओए कहाँ जा रही है, और फिर खुद बाइक पे बैठ के चले जाते हैं. कहाँ जा रही है? थेरेपी जाऊंगी शायद.
लोग बोलते हैं there is light at the end of the tunnel, but only during the day.
I'm into adventure sport. इसीलिए ना मैं रात को अकेले गुड़गांव में ट्रैवल करती हूँ.
जब भी मैं देर रात में निकल रही होती हूँ, मेरा कोई ना कोई दोस्त जरूर बोलता है, ओए कॉल मी, हाँ कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम हो तो. क्यों, तू पुलिस कमिश्नर है?
These jokes might be funny, but women's safety isn't.